What is up, everybody? How's everybody doing? I am doing fine. Thank you for asking me. Even though you didn't ask, I'm letting you know I'm doing okay. So, yesterday was the No Kings protest, which the one we don't talk to, kind of trips me out, said that it was an anti American protest that was going on, all the way to the vice president. Anti American protest, which is not true. Like that, like they did that on purpose in order to make the populace think somehow or another that this was anti-American when they knew better, because we had one of these in June. Like, we literally went through this in June. This is a second one, and there's going to be a third one, I'm sure, by winter or maybe spring. My thoughts on it, because this is life according to Bob. This is my opinion, and I rarely, if ever, speak about politics in public forums, because it's just not good. Like I said, it's the other side that's always the enemy, and we got to get past that. I have my opinions, as everybody does, but they're founded in common sense and rational thinking. And some of my friends who are Trumpers, a couple of them, me and Waylon, we will nip at each other about politics on occasion, and we'll get hyped up about it and all that stuff. And then at the end of the conversation, oh, okay, what's for dinner? Like, we just forget that we don't forget that we had the conversation, but we battle it out, so to speak, because we want to get our opinions across to the other person and hopefully change their mind, which is probably not possible. Me and Ron do the same thing. I don't know why those two guys are Trumpers. We do the same thing. We go back and forth, and then at the end, it's like, okay, what's for dinner? The only person in my life who took it personal, as if Trump is some type of relative, which is kind of weird. Like, the people that stick up for him and discount their family and their friends and everything else just because Trump matters so much to them is mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing. And that would be my sister. So we had a falling out on her part some years ago because we got in the discussion about Trump, and she got her feelings hurt and she quit talking to me. We just recently got back together talking, but that's after some years, because she felt so adamant about this guy who, I don't know. I can't get into the mindset of somebody who gets married mentally to a politician. I don't get it. I have lived through Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Carter, Bush Sr., Reagan, Bush, how many others? And then there was Clinton, and there was all kinds of presidents that I've lived through. And I've seen controversies on every one of them, Kennedy included, with the nuclear missile crisis, the Cuban crisis that he went through. There was controversy with Johnson to a certain extent because of the Vietnam War that got left over when Kennedy died. A lot of controversy with Nixon because, Watergate, and the country was divided, and we were divided during that time about Vietnam. There was a lot of bad blood during the Vietnam War, during that time that Nixon was in office, because there was Ohio State shooting that happened, where the National Guard were called out and some people died in Ohio on the campus. So yes, we've been through this before, but not to this extent. There was bad blood with Carter. There was bad blood. Carter let the hostages stay way, way too long. And I was involved in that rescue mission, but that's another topic for another time. There was bad blood with Reagan. There was bad blood with both Bushes, like Bush talking about mass weapons of destruction, or mass weapons of mass destruction, which was a lie. So every presidency has had its social pushback, and one side and the other pushing back against each other, but never to the extent of this. This is Colorado. This is in the middle of the country. This isn't even New York. This isn't Los Angeles. This isn't Miami. This is not a major hub of the United States. This crowd is incredible. This crowd is like an inauguration of a president, let alone pushing back on one. The fact that millions of people voted for Trump and millions more didn't kind of gives way to this. But I guess the whole point of making the video, as you know, or may not know, I'm a military veteran, like I served my country. I did a lot of things for the community during my time when I was in my 20s and 30s and going into my 40s. So not only did I serve in the military, potentially giving my life for my country, when I got out, I also was a volunteer with the Red Cross, the very first time with the Red Cross when I was about 23, 24 years old. I volunteered to teach CPR on Saturdays for free because the Red Cross doesn't charge anything to learn CPR. And I was one of the CPR instructors who would give up my Saturday for the benefit of my community. Later on, I was a firefighter. So again, I potentially gave my life for my community. I put my life in peril. I gave back. I was EMT also, firefighter / EMT, EMT 1. Later on, if that wasn't enough, later on, I became a volunteer when I moved here to Atlanta for the Red Cross as well. And I was on the DAT, D-A-T, Disaster Action Team is what they call it. So anytime there was a disaster, I don't care if it was an apartment fire, there was a tornado that I was involved in back in Dunwoody, back in 90, I want to say 94, 95, somewhere around there. And so we drove around in a Red Cross van and gave out food and gave out water, and helped people. And it warmed my heart to be able to spend somebody else's money to help others and help my community. I did all that stuff. Habitat for Humanity, which Jimmy Carter started up years ago. There's this idea that the downtrodden, which I was at a certain time a couple of times in my life, need help. And so it was nice that I was able to help somebody else, even though I wasn't necessarily helped when I was down below and, like really needy and all that stuff. I wasn't helped. I had to make it on my own. But it was nice to be able to do all that stuff. The irony is, I don't know if I have that video still. I might have it still on my phone. I was at Costco a couple weeks back, and I'm just sitting in my truck, and I'm getting ready to go in Costco, but I got a couple things to do on my phone and all this stuff. So about 50 yards away, I see this truck pull up, and this guy gets out, this older guy gets out, and he has a red hat on. And right away, I knew it was a MAGA hat. Right away, red hat. And sure enough, MAGA all across it. And so as him and his wife walked past me, I just said, "Excuse me, what branch of the military did you serve in?" And he's like, "I didn't serve in any branch of the military." And I'm like, "Yeah, I knew that." Like that's all I said. I knew that. And he kept on walking, and then he decided to turn back around and engage me. And he's like, "I was just walking around minding my own business, and you decided," and I interrupted him like, "No, you weren't minding your own business because you're wearing your hat on your head that says," and why shouldn't I say anything? You're saying something. So why don't I have a way to say something? And I didn't even say anything about Trump. I literally didn't say anything. I just said, "What branch did you serve in?" And he said nothing. And I knew that. I knew that because 99% of the time when I ask a Trumper, "What branch did you serve in?" they said, "I never served." Kennedy said this: "Ask not what your nation can do for you, but country. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." In other words, give back to your country. Don't just expect your country to do for you. And 99% of the time, these MAGA people have never done nothing. They've never volunteered a soup kitchen. They've never done any type of volunteer work whatsoever. Never volunteered with the Red Cross. Never served in the military. Not never, very few. Never were in public service the way I was. They never did anything for their country. They just have an expectation that all these rights that they have, that they are privileged to, are just God-given birthright, which is fine. But then don't wear your hat showing off about this POS that you're married to. Like, he had an option. When they were leaving, I saw his truck, and he had 2 other hats on his dashboard, sitting on his dashboard. He could have easily said, I'm going into a very crowded, diverse community. Let me wear that hat and take this one off and leave it in the truck. Or not even wear it. But he didn't. He made that decision that he's going to go into a crowded store with a lot of diverse people and wear a hat that nobody should speak up about. Like, we shouldn't talk about it. Because I didn't say anything about Trump. I didn't say anything about being a Republican or anything. I just question what he's done to think that, he can just walk around wearing something and then not have a pushback. It's almost like back in the day in the South, and I'm not from here. I'm from California originally, but I've been here for a long time. But back in the day, imagine walking around in a robe and a pointy hat around Costco or Walmart or whatever, and not having nobody say nothing. Imagine that. Like, I couldn't imagine that in the 1940s or 50s, seeing somebody dressed in this white sheet and pointy hat and then not saying a word. Like, I couldn't hold my mouth. I couldn't. Anyway, I digress. That's not the point of the video. I'm just giving you some flavor and all that stuff. I'm not a Democrat. Although I vote Democrat most of the time, I have voted Republican from time to time because it just depends on the lesser of two evils in my mind. There's a lot of Republican type of stuff that I'm on board with. I like gun rights. I own a bunch of them. I like, it's like cherry picking, right? I don't have a party necessarily that I'm married to, but if I were, it would be the Democratic side, although I'm a libertarian. Libertarian basically is almost like, just leave me alone. Just let me lead my life. Just government stay out of my life. That's what libertarian. You do you, I'll do me. We don't have any controversy about trans. We don't have any controversy about gay people. We don't have any controversy about, like, it doesn't affect our life. So therefore, it's just like irrelevant, like, that's the moderate view. That's the moderate view. Now, having said all that and getting back to what I said before I hijacked my own conversation, I was in the military. And when you're in the military, your commander-in-chief is at the very, very top. It's like the boss of the company. So if the boss of the company says, hey, grab that rifle and go into that battleground and go kill some people, you have to trust what your boss tells you. There has to be a trust there. There has to be a knowledge that what he said to you is, in fact, factual and not made up or not, like this and that, I would not follow Trump into a playground, let alone a battleground, because I can't believe a word he says, because everything he says is a lie. And I found him quite reprehensible and disgusting before he ever even ran. Before he ran, I found him disgusting and reprehensible for a lot of different reasons. I never watched that stupid show where he was like such a narcissist that he wanted all the attention. But I can go all the way back to the 80s where there was, and I don't have all the facts, sorry, you can look it up yourself, but there was a killing of I think a female. Was it a killing or an assault of a female in New York on a train? And these 4 boys that were pinned unjustly for that assault were locked up and put in prison, convicted and put in prison. You know what Trump did? He put out a full-page New York Times a full-page New York Times op-ed, basically, calling for the death penalty for these 4 boys. Like, literally said, fry them. And they were innocent. And years later, they were found to be innocent and they were let free. Imagine if people listened to Trump back then and decided, you know what, you're right, let's fry them. Like, it bothers me in a lot of ways, the vitriol and the disgusting behavior that he's had through the years. You know, like, again, pre-presidency, having the college, the university, the Trump University, that he scammed all the students out of. He scammed them. And just recently, he had to pay back millions of dollars for those people that he scammed. You know, opening I think he had a wine company, he had a meat company, he had all these fail companies along the way. You know, and then I think Trump Casino ended up going bankrupt, and then he didn't pay the contractors, and that. I mean, the list goes so far that I would take up the next hour just talking about all his failures. When he put his daughter on his knee, when I think she was 8, 9 years old, and said, oh, she is a hottie, and, you know, when she grows up, you know, I'd like to date her, or something to that effect. I'm like, then he went on Howard Stern and kind of reiterated that whole thing, and it's like, oh, this guy. That he ever became president was my fault, because I saw him as such a clown and such a vile, disgusting, nasty human being. I just didn't think he could win. Anybody on that stage, I think there were 9 other people. I think it was Marco Rubio, who's disgusting too, because he's an ass kisser now. Marco Rubio and the governor from New Jersey. There was a bunch of people on the stage that I would have voted for before Trump. And I'm not even a Republican, but I would have voted for any one of those before Trump. I just didn't think he had a hell chance in whatever they call it. I didn't think he could ever win. So I didn't vote. And he won, and I was just flabbergasted. And when he first started out, before he even got the reign of power, he said, you know, if you vote for me, you'll see I'll be the best president you've ever seen in your life. I'm like, you know, okay, well, you know, you're the president now. Like, I gave him enough slack to see if he would actually change his behavior. Because if you remember, on the first term, he had disgusting behavior, you know, like just abhorrent behavior on the trail, on the campaign trail. So after he won, I said, okay, bunch of hype in order to win. I'll give him that. Let's see what he does. And he got worse and worse and worse. So now, fast forward, we didn't have to deal with him. We voted him out because guess what? I learned my lesson the first time, and the next time I voted. And I did not, and thousands, if not millions, did not vote for Biden. We did not. They were on the ticket. It was Trump or Biden. Remember I talked about lesser of two evils? It was Trump or Biden. We didn't want Biden. We didn't choose Biden. Biden chose us because of Trump. Because if there's anybody else other than Trump, I would have voted for that person rather than Biden. So to be clear with my 2 friends, with Ron and Waylon, when we get into an argument, they always go back to, well, what about Hillary? What about Clinton? What about this? What about, no. Defend your man on his own merits. Defend your man. Don't make a comparison to somebody else. Defend your man. Why is it okay for him to do what he does all the time? Why is that okay? Why can you lack morals and character and empathy and sympathy, and why can you lack all that stuff? Why can you lack all that stuff and still be put up on a pedestal like you're something special and you're not? There is nothing that Trump has either said or done that I would ever think of doing in my life. I don't lie, I don't steal, I don't do all the, you know, I just have that moral fiber that he lacks. And many do. And that's what surprises me, that he could even win in a second term. That we didn't learn our lesson from the first time, that more people didn't vote him out rather than vote him in. Because honestly, he won fair and square. Although I don't believe with the Electoral College. I think the Electoral College is bull crap. It really is. It should be popular vote, period. But he won the popular vote, which is a bit weird. Now, fast forward. This, all across the country, those millions and millions and millions of people that did not vote for him are these people all across the country because they're watching what he's doing only 10 months in. And all the stuff, and I don't have to talk about it because I'm sure you've seen it on the news, but all the stuff that he's done to try and have an autocracy, to have a dictator in office. You remember he talked about Kim Jong-un or whatever his name is in Korea, and he praised him and he praised Putin and all that. He likes dictators. He likes people that can put down their fists and say, this is the way it is. You're going to follow what I say no matter what, or I'm going to lock you up. That's what he likes. He loves that. I bet he likes Saddam Hussein too. That we are on the cusp of something that we've never experienced before in this country is very bizarre. I would like to be in a time machine and just go fast forward a year and 3 months. Sorry, 3 years and 3 months. I don't want to see this train wreck. I really don't. Because it's going to be a train wreck. I don't know what to expect. I really don't. I don't think anybody does. The best that I could say that he is doing is he's challenging all of our rights and the Constitution itself. He's making a direct challenge to that. He's testing it the way nobody has ever tested it before. And I hope it holds up. Because it's either going to fail, which I don't want to see, or we're going to be stronger for it. And the Constitution will be the barrier that prevents him from doing what he wants to do, which is be a ruler. And in his mind, ruler for life, or at least 3 terms, which is kind of, people say, oh, he's just joking about stuff. But he's not joking, because none of the stuff he's talked about has he never not done. He's not joking. He makes off-the-cuff things that he says and all, but everything that he's ever said, believe him when he speaks. Because that's if it falls out of his mouth and his brain, you have to believe what he says, because he's shown his own ass too many times, way too many times. And in my opinion, he should have, where the Justice Department screwed up all along the way with his first term is not clobbering him with all these charges that he was charged with in the beginning. They procrastinated. That he's a felon. With the Stormy Daniels thing, who cares? That he hoarded documents in his house is a big deal to me. That he lied on, there's a lot of stuff that he did wrong, that he never even got caught for, that he was never even charged for. The No Kings protest, no autocracy. We don't belong in an autocracy. The founding fathers, the reason that we left, we didn't want to follow the king. The religion was being pushed down our throat, and we wanted that freedom to follow our own path. We didn't want to do what England told us to do. That's why we left. And after we left, England came back years later, and they're like, how dare you leave our country? We're coming back for you. And then 1776 happened, and we won again. We sent them sailing back to England. Now we're in our own country fighting the same thing that we had to fight thousands of miles away hundreds of years later. It's just bizarre. We're fighting against our own, not just the sides of the party, but whether or not we want to live in a democracy or an autocracy. See, that's the choice. If we give Trump the reign of power, which the Supreme Court has done a pretty good job so far of doing, our country is done. We're finished. We're ruined. We're screwed, because right now they're even trying to get the protesters, the people who organized the protesters, locked up. The people that organized this, they want them locked up. Yet they talk about free speech. You can go online and see where Donald Trump talked about, oh, we're finally bringing back free speech, the First Amendment, blah, blah, blah. He talks out of both sides of his ass, because now he's talking about locking them up. You can't have free speech unless it aligns with what he wants to hear. As I said before, I don't like to get involved in politics and political strife and all that stuff. And the internet is really stupid, because people put comments in the comment section and troll. Even if they're not trolling on purpose, they have something snipey to say, and I really don't care about those comments. Like I said, I have family and friends who are on both sides, and, we're all the same. We're all Americans at the end of the day. So I don't want to have all of this controversy and this and that, da, da, da. I'm speaking about one individual person. I could talk about Ted Cruz kissing up to Trump, calling him disgusting names and all that stuff in the first term, and then he wants to post, so he kisses up to him. Marco Rubio, same way, kisses up to him. Everybody kisses up to him, because they want to be aligned with this power that he supposedly has. But my whole take on, and what I wanted to get across on this video, is the one POS that I'm talking about. And I don't even like saying his name, 47. That's what this video is about. Is it about the march? Oh, hell yeah. Is it about most Americans, no matter what party you're on, not wanting to live in a dictatorship? Yes, that's what the video is about. But at the end of the day, what I'm talking about is one individual who has no moral fiber about him, who has no character, who has no just human traits that we take for granted, that we just think, goes along with the program when we're human. And then he comes along and just blows all of that out of the water and says, basically, you can be disgusting and nasty and vile and rude and all this stuff and still make it to the highest office in the land. Is mind-blowing. Like, my head would explode right now if it could. But that's the world according to Bob. I have my opinion and you have yours, and I will welcome the comments, but I'm not going to welcome necessarily responses, because I said what I had to say. Like, if you like them, fine. If you don't like them, that's great too. But, at the end of the day, this is my video, my channel, and my opinion. And you can have your own and think differently. But let me put it like this. If we were to have, if you and I, whoever's watching, you're on the other side of the table and I'm on the table, and we're sharing a couple of drinks or whatever and talking about Trump in a normal, respectful fashion. All I want you to do is defend him. I don't want you to talk about, oh, I made so much more money when he was in office, or I did so much better. I was able to buy a house when he was on. I don't want you to talk about residual effects of his presidency. I want you to talk about the person. Defend your guy, because that's what this video is about. My disgust with this guy. Defend why you think it's okay to demean and humiliate and call names to people and think that's okay. The way he talked about veterans specifically really got to me. John McCain was like the worst. Oh, I don't like, you call him a hero? I like the heroes that weren't caught, not the ones that were. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This man spent like 7 years in a POW camp in Vietnam and was allowed to be released because his father was way up in the Pentagon. His father was an admiral, and he was given a free pass to get out of that hellhole. And he declined because he said, I'm not coming out alone. If these guys, my comrades, aren't coming out, I'm not coming out either. And he spent years longer and got beat up and tortured and all this stuff. And for Trump to say something disgusting like that, I'm done. That's life according to Bob. Until the next one, I didn't plan on doing this one, but I had to say something on the heels of this protest yesterday because it really matters. I just, it matters because the world needs to see. We could know that there's a lot of people that didn't vote for him, but the world needs to see that there are millions of people that don't agree with him. When I travel, I'm embarrassed to say I'm an American because the first question is, oh, and Trump is your president. No, he's not my president, not mine. Anyway, I'm out until the next one. I don't know what the next topic will be. If you have an idea, put it in the comment section. But have a good night or evening or day or morning or whenever you watch this. Bye.